Welcome, friends and family. Super excited to be here with you today in this beautiful month of March. We're seeing the sun come back out, and it's pretty out again. It's that time of year that a lot of activity starts to happen in our world, in the real estate world. I think last week we put like I think 13 under contract,
16.
16 under contract in 1 week with about a five-person sales team. So, hey, March is here. We're glad you're here. Me and my friend Casey are continuing to go over how to win friends and influence people. And today we're talking about making people glad to do what you want, making people glad to do what you want.
Yeah.
And, there's a trick to that. Um, my dad, back on the job site, he used to say, bring me shovelfuls, not tablespoons. And he'd yell, and it was loud. There's a lot of noisy equipment out there.
hmm
It really didn't motivate us to want to go out there and grab a big. I mean, we got angry, but it wasn't it wasn't probably the proper motivation. Some of the guys I grew up with, John Semino, Kenny Gibson, we'll still get together and we'll joke about how Dad had us out there as young
Yeah.
kids and worked us, man, worked us. Today, in a real estate office, and I think this is one of the reasons I was attracted to moving to real estate because in construction, the people you're working with, they were fragile. I mean, some days they showed up, some days they didn't. Some days they had A attitudes, some days they didn't. Probably depending on how much they drank the night before and what time they got to bed, to tell you the truth. But it was I always seen that as such a hard thing for my dad to have to kind of herd these guys.
Never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, and then you kind of had to have them. You know what I mean? Like you really did need somebody there holding a
Right.
shovel, operating the paver. And but if they were having a bad day and you tried to correct them, it could be a blow up in front of everybody. So it was always such a challenge. And I watched Dad, and had a lot of respect for him. I didn't understand it then.
Right.
But I'll never forget Rob Strevel said one day, he said, your dad's never told me once what to do. He's always asked me, do you mind to? Would you do this? And I thought that's interesting approach, and I questioned that as a child if that was the best way to do it or not, because I've seen those guys probably not getting to the task at the pace and way that I would want them to. But also, I look back and I see my dad is he was probably much better at sales than he was at running that small business because with people that he was trying to sell the product to, they loved his approach.
hmm
He got a lot of jobs. A lot of the jobs he bid on the paver, do tree work, he often got those. He always told me you're selling yourself. You're not necessarily selling the product. You're selling yourself. And when they buy into you, they buy into the product. So, but on those job sites, I didn't know if his approach to the way he talked to the people. But I'm going to tell you this at 48, many years later, decades later, I'm 100% convinced that is the way you should talk to people. And with me and Asa being his sons and our friends, he was a little tough. It was kind of like a little bit of a gauntlet out
Right.
there. But knowing that the approach to get the best results out of people probably come from making them happy to do what they're going to do. Um, Me and you, we've recently had this kind of a situation come up that we had to kind of get on the other side of the fence and say, okay, how do we want to approach this? We have a good guy here that's coming in and not quite got his real estate license yet, struggling with that approach to get his license.
hmm
But we'll get it. He's just such a perseverer. But in order for him, he quit the job he had, came in here needing to go full time and continue to supplement that income, but without a license. So we had to kind of go into a different gear.
hmm
And in order to make that work in an ISA position where he is making outbound calls to people who have reached out to us at one time or another
Right.
asking about buying a home in Tennessee
hmm
or a piece of land. And so we put him in that position and first week or two, where it's like, man, we 6, 7 hours a week and a day, 6, 7 hours a day. And he's doing what a lot of our team members are doing in 2 hours a
hmm
day, 5 days a week. He's making the same amount of contacts, less than 100. And we're thinking when we put you in here for 6 hours a day, you should probably be making, at first we wanted to be nice, 120 and kind of ramp up 150. But after a while, we're like, Man, we got to get this play higher. It don't look good. Our team members up there will look at me and you and say, why is he getting away with only making that
Yep.
many and we're doing this and you're not even paying us to do it. So it was a little bit of a situation where me and you had to go behind the scenes and we had to say, okay, how do we help this situation and do it in a way that is proper and caring and
Mm-hmm.
gets the results that is best for this gentleman and best for us.
Yep.
And at that time, we decided to be real clear on the number of contacts. And you were so smart. I think you put a dollar amount per every contact. Do you remember what that amount was?
Yeah, it's exact $2.88, something like that.
$2.88. And so if from Monday to Friday you come in and we set a goal, I think of about 200 contacts, which we broke that down. We said that's
Mm-hmm.
about 7 contacts an hour over the course of 6 hours. That's 42. If we did that times five, it was a little over 200. And so we said, I think we can get there. And sure enough, after we had that talk and we presented that to him and saying, look, brother, we're fine with you doing less than this, but we wouldn't be able to pay you what we were going to pay you. Uh, we'll pay you less, $2.88 per contact, anything under 200. Or if you want to come in and get that 200 and you don't get it in 5 days, you can get it in six. Come on in on a Saturday. And lo and behold, the dude came in on a Saturday, hit his 200 contacts,
Mm-hmm.
and really went from the week before at 71 to the next week at 200.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like really what we did is what we found out is what does he want? He wants a paycheck. And a lot of people do, right? Like who goes to work for free? Very few people. We know only a handful that will do that. And a lot of times they're in big time ministries that are helping a lot of people. And thank God for those folks. Most people go to work for a paycheck. They have to. You know what I mean? Most Americans are still at a place where we need to earn a living. And this is a young man, good dude. Uh, so we presented that to him. And when he seen it that clearly, and we seen it from his side, okay, what does he need to get initiated? Then it was like, okay, he punched in the clock. And this week so far, I believe he's doing real good again.
Yeah, everything seems to be working well with that, and you know, in that, really, what that boils down to is just the communication of it, right? The
Mm-hmm.
communication of, you know, I know when it was presented, it was, hey man, we love you, we like you,
Mm-hmm.
we'll do anything for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're a brother to us. We're willing to help out in any way we can. At the end of the day, this is where we got to be, and it's not a you thing, it's not a us thing. This is the expectations of it, and this is
What's
what we're
best
doing,
for the company, what's best for the team. We
and
know
best
that
for
if
the
you're
clients,
we
really.
know that if you're hitting these numbers that everybody in this on this team is going to win.
Yep.
In order for this team to win, these numbers got to be hit, and you're the man to
Hmm.
do it.
Yep, I agree, and
Hmm.
it's that communication of that, get on the same page, and if the decision was that we wasn't on the same page, that's fine. We're still gonna love you. We
Hmm.
just love you from somewhere else,
Right, right, right.
but I'm thankful that wasn't the decision.
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
so glad that he's still around and doing that, because
Hmm.
he will be fantastic. He is fantastic,
Yeah.
and will continue to grow in that, and
The
excited.
what I would say, well, I love what you're saying. And me and you, we always, we could go deep on a lot of these
Yeah,
conversations because
we
we're
can.
here eating this candy every day.
Hmm.
But one thing I would say is it's in my nature, man, to kind of figure out what get by is and just stay there. And when we started this team, Lindsay and I, about 8 or 9 years ago, before then we were in personal production. We hired a coach and he fired us up if we didn't hit our numbers. But for Lindsay and I, we were like, that coach was so good that we had an overflow. And then all of a sudden it was like we're hiring staff and hiring, bringing in buyer agents. And it was a little more than just selling real estate. And it's like, okay, we had a great coach that taught us how to do this. Now we're helping other people, but it's more like a business now than it is like me being out there
Right. It's not
just,
solo production.
yeah.
Yeah.
So at that level, we needed to figure out how to run a company and how to run a business. And so, 8, 9 years later, me and you are sitting here doing what we're doing. But the reason, Casey, we built this team is because I need accountability. Like I need encouragement to get up and do my best every day. I want to produce at a high level and be my very best. But without the right people around me, without the right culture, without the right environment, we will all go to the where's the get by mode.
Mhm.
When you were working with your tennis, and when you were as a teacher, coach with the tennis girls, how
Mhm.
did you get them excited about hitting their goals?
Oh, that's a great question. And to be honest with you, I wish I kind of knew then what I know now in a lot of
It's really cool.
ways. Because I see definitely ways that that could have been done better. And the thing is, um, you know, I always made a benchmark for them. So when they first come in, we take a couple of videos of kind of how they moved around the court and how they served and how they played a little bit. We take a video like day one of,
Yeah.
this is where you're starting at. And we start learning basics and there's a whole lesson in that too, right? There's a whole lesson in the basics is anything to do. There's a basics of sales. There's a
Hmm.
basics of running a company. There's a basics of photography. There's a basics of anything you want to put there.
Yeah.
There's a foundation level to it, and you
Yes.
build from there
Right.
according to what accountability and how you want to push yourself.
Hmm.
Same with anything. So we take a video of those and we start teaching the basics. This is the grips you need to use. This is how you need to swing. This is how you need to position your body. This is we do that and we grind it out. And a month later, 30 days later, we take another video and we put them side by side. We'd say, this is where you started. This is what, and then always in that 30-day grind, they'd be like, I don't feel like I'm getting any better. I don't, I'm still,
Mm,
and a lot of times they still didn't understand the full thing. They still wasn't that good at the
yeah.
time, but they were so much better than they were
Wow.
30 days ago.
Wow.
So we'd put them
I
videos
love
side by
that.
side and say,
Yeah.
look, this is where you started. This is where
Yeah.
you're at now. And I know this is not where you want to be.
Yeah.
I know that you want to continue growing from here, and we will. But look how much better you got in 30 days. So just imagine how much
Benchmarks.
better you're going to be in 30 more
Benchmarks.
days,
Benchmarks. Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah.
So, um,
That's awesome, man.
and of course, I only did that with the ones that give me that true drive of wanting to do that. I had some that wanted to come out and they were okay just hanging out,
Hmm.
needed a after school activity till, mom and dad got off work or something like that. And,
And
and
there's a different program
a
for
different
those, right? A little
program,
different program.
different program with them.
Yeah.
But I had, I'll never forget her name. Elizabeth Squire was her name, and I think when she came to me, she was a sophomore, and she'd been a basketball player her entire life. She trained for basketball, is what she was doing, and she wound up having an ACL injury,
Mm.
and basketball wasn't quite feasible for her anymore because of the contact part
Yeah. It could
of that.
hurt her knee, of course.
Right. And she did therapy and stuff and got to where, she could move on her own, but the risk of being on a basketball court potentially getting bumped by somebody else or something, was there.
Hmm.
So she decided her sophomore year, let
Tennis
me
was a
let
better
me let me
sport for
see
her.
what tennis looks
Yeah.
like. And she told me, she played a little bit with her family and stuff, but didn't know a whole lot about it. And she had natural talent. She was an athlete, right? So she had some natural talent to her. And so we started working her sophomore year and started going, and she won a couple games her sophomore year. But again, first time playing, learning stuff. Man, by junior, I mean, she was tearing people up.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we
She found her
she
passion.
did that, and she would get better equipment,
Hmm.
and actually did some tournaments and stuff like I did outside of what we were doing in school
And how
and
did
that
that
kind of
make you
stuff.
feel as a coach, my
Oh,
friend?
it's fantastic to
Yeah.
see that drive and go. And I, unfortunately, I think if I'd have got her sooner,
Hmm.
we could have really built. I mean, high school careers are very finite, right? You
Yeah.
got
It's a
4 years
short
to make
window,
something
man.
happen,
Short window.
and
Yeah.
the growth you see in that 4 years is phenomenal. But her senior year, we went through and played. I think she only lost one match her senior year,
Dang. Wow. That's
and
impressive.
then got into tournaments and stuff, and I think she got put out. She made it to the semifinals of districts and got beat by a Cookeville player, which Cookeville's coach Brian is a great friend of mine. Actually, was a mentor of mine in tennis as well. I took some lessons under him and
Hmm.
spent a lot of time with him, and he's a fantastic dude and fantastic coach when it
Yeah.
comes to tennis. He knows his
Yeah.
stuff,
He
and
knows how to move it from A to B.
he's very good at what he does, and
Yeah.
he's got solid players, man. It's tough to beat them. Always has been, and as long as Brian's there, always will be tough to beat.
You know,
But
Casey, as you and I sit here and talk, I'm just so reminded that everybody needs a coach.
yeah,
Like nobody in life is going to be to their best without a coach. And I
hmm
and I think I said that with Mike Ferry, and then you've met Howard Partridge, who's been our coach for building company and team. And but man, everybody in life needs a coach.
hmm
Everybody needs a good coach, and the best coaches like you learn how to help them get from where they are to where they want to be. And there's a technique to that. So a girl, her hurt knee probably devastated, right? Like she'd seen herself playing ball. This is something she loves to do. Probably all of her friends are playing ball. She's
hmm
worked hard to get there. She's got a busted up knee. She is still strong and courageous, and she's going to get back in the game. Just going to be a different game.
hmm
And finding that right coach at that right time to help her go from probably a little bit of depression, a little bit of anxiety, like, can I even do this? Will my knee support me? Having a good coach to help her do that, and like you said, walk her through the first year, which is generally going to be a little awkward. Like it's uncomfortable, but you knew what she wanted, and you were that coach to help her get there her senior
yeah.
year.
To see them go from how do you even keep score to you know when you're coaching tennis, there's it's a different dynamic, right? When you're coaching basketball, there's one game going on, and yeah, you may have five players you're watching on the court, but you're watching one court, watching what's going on and making adjustments as a
Mm-hmm.
coach during the game according to how the other team's playing, and same
Mm-hmm.
with football, same with soccer, same
Mm-hmm.
with man, with tennis, I've got six courts moving at the same time, and I've got
Wow.
six players out there on six different courts, and I've got to walk around and try to keep up with all of them at the same time, and
Mm.
bring them over,
Oh man, that's
during
cool.
changeovers and stuff, and say, hey, you need to make this adjustment, or hey, you
Mm-hmm.
might want to do this, or hey,
Mm-hmm.
watch this. So I had, I'm walking around trying to keep up, and the bad thing is I'm down here on court number six, and then I kind of look up, and on court number two, I see something, and so I've got to come back down here and say, "Hey, come here,
Yeah, yeah,
you got to
yeah.
fix this." So
And
it's a different dynamic with that for sure. But man, to walk around and see that player go, you look at the scorecard and she's up 6-2, in that game, and you're like, she's got this one.
mm,
But then what also gets you is when you see you're up 6-2, and then you walk by a little bit later and now it's 6-6. You're like, what happened?
yeah, where'd they go?
what,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
happened?
yeah.
You know. Uh,
Broken focus, man.
but as far as what this chapter is talking about is about getting
Mm-hmm.
them glad to do what you want to do, man. I think for me, I think that boils down one to the communication, but two, what you just said, the passion and what they want to do. Because maybe the passion for what they want is not what you're trying to get them to do, and maybe that has to be recognized.
Right.
Um.
100,
So
100.
yeah,
Again, that's where I think it goes back to you had two programs.
yeah,
One for the one that has that desire to
hmm
be a top performer, push me, coach, get me to this A game. And then for the other ones who are like, man, I like life and I'm good with just kind of hanging out and being with my friends here. That's two different programs.
yeah. I mean, I could talk about it all day. I had another lady named her name's Caitlin Carpenter, still a good friend of mine. Even now, she'll message every now and again and check in. Had her and her brother. But man, when she walked in as a freshman to join the tennis team when I had sign-ups and tryouts. And when she walked in the door, I heard a voice behind me turn around, and she kind of scared me. I'm talking. I mean, she's just a broad girl.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, oh, you
yeah.
know,
In
um,
high school, right?
and complete opposite, non-athlete. And Caitlin, if you wind up seeing this, I love you to death. I'm not talking bad about you by all means, but you know, she, I mean, non-athlete, you could tell like the movement and stuff. I mean, she was very blocky and everything else, and
Mhm.
we trained and trained. And but the thing is I found a way that I could get her to play the game with the way that she moved, right? And her senior year, I mean, she won 85-90% of the matches she played.
Yeah.
I think she wound up fourth in the district her senior year or
Wow.
something like that.
Wow.
Coming from never and not an athlete. I'm talking it was a struggle with her to get her to
Mm-hmm.
understand
Mm-hmm.
movement and
Mm-hmm.
lateral and all that stuff. But she wanted it. The drive was there, the passion was there. So I mean, great examples in that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you
Mm-hmm.
know, for me, it's the respect. It's I feel like my approach is to get people to understand that as long as you're doing the right thing, I'm gonna have your back. As long as we're on the same page with things, I'm gonna have your back. That
Mm-hmm.
respect is there,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think I can build a relationship with people to the point that you know they don't want to let me down.
Right. So you
And
ain't got
it's
to yell at them to get
right,
them to do what you want.
yeah,
It's more building that out of relationship
hmm
and out of care and
and
concern.
that understanding, I'm gonna go to bat for you each and every time as long as we're working
It's huge.
towards the same goal.
It's
You know,
huge. Very
so
sincere, very genuine.
hmm
Yeah. And you've coached some champions, man, in tennis, and now you're doing it in real estate sales.
yeah, you're
Eh,
one of them.
Yeah, and I am one of them. I'm a product. I'm a product of your coaching and training, my brother. And glad to be, man.
Yeah,
Glad to be. Guys, we want to say thank you for taking time to listen today. Hopefully, there's been something that can add some value to you in helping through this great resource of how to win friends and influence people. There's probably, even if you just got 10% better, imagine how much easier life will be. The old proverb, you can cut more wood with a sharp axe than you can a dull one. So why not be sharp? Invest a little time, figure it out. This book's a great book. We recommend highly that you read it. Hope you have a great week. Thank you.